Have you ever caught yourself saying, I used to be in great shape, or I just don't bounce back like I used to? What if the problem isn't you, but how you're training for a life that doesn't reflect the one you're actually living? Welcome back to Who Are You Now, the podcast where we explore the shift back to self, one real conversation at a time. I'm your host, Chrissie Morgan. Today's episode is all about strength, but not just in your body. It's about shifting the way you think about movement, aging, and what it means to train for life, not for looks. My guest is Pat Anderson, a certified personal trainer and certified special population specialist with over 30 years of experience and over 50,000 client hours under his belt. He has trained everyone from professional athletes to everyday parents, and he's passionate about helping people, especially over 50, train for the actual life they're living. In this conversation, we'll talk about how to reconnect with your body, shift outdated beliefs about aging, and build a training mindset that supports vitality, not punishment. Whether you're over 50 or just ready to move with more purpose, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Hi, Pat.
Hi, Chrissie. How you doing?
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thrilled to be here.
So, Pat, you've been an athlete, you're a trainer, and you're now a husband and a father. How has that evolution shaped how you see health and fitness today?
It's a path of empathy, right? Going from an athlete and kind of center focused on yourself and your own body. And then as you go into professional life, being a trainer and then as a father and a husband, seeing other people intimately, being aware of what's going on with them, you just learn empathy for people, see the struggles that they have. That's the number one thing for me, I think, over that experience.
And does that shape how you choose to train people? How do you use that empathy?
You know, when you start off, you want to show them what you know. As a trainer, they come in and you just want to show off your knowledge and show them how much you can help them. And then you really realize over time that the way that you can help them is by listening, by understanding what their needs are. And so that takes time. I think there's maybe a level of confidence that you have that you don't need to show off your knowledge. That'll come over time. And so I'd say that's the biggest thing, empathy and the ability to understand what their needs are, what's going to motivate them.
Absolutely. Did you have a defining moment that made you shift from performance-based training to this train for life philosophy that you have?
It was really interesting training athletes at the same time. I was training a lot of the high-tech people. So you had really polar opposites, people that were athletes that were very into what their bodies did. And you had people that really had no connection with their body. Everything was mental. Everything was with their mind on the computer all the time. They just had no mobility and no connection with that at all. And obviously we know that there's a connection through all those, right? The mind and the body are powerful together.
Yes.
And sometimes maybe the same thing with athlete isn't connected with their mind sometimes. And that's where we really have to help them. And then the opposite with the people that aren't in touch with their body, making them understand. And that's why I say it's very rewarding for them, because then you're opening a connection that they haven't had.
Yeah, that's really interesting because, as that mind, body, spirit connection, I have this philosophy, the body awareness method, that there's always four bodies. There's the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. And we had a conversation last night on what the actual definition of spirituality is. That's the final episode of season 1. I don't know if I was articulating because we had some wine. But do you look at your training when you're going to sit down with the person and cover all of those aspects? So like you said, the empathy part about what they're going through, whether it's emotional or mental, what is in their physical world, where their mindset or their spirit is at, with not only life, but also towards their training.
Definitely there's the element of what do you want out of this? What's your goals? I think some of the emotional things take time. There has to be a trust built up between myself and the client, where then with anybody, right? You don't usually drop your full emotions on somebody right away. So they have to develop a trust with me. And it sometimes takes coaxing where you might know something's there, but you don't want to be too aggressive with it. You want to gain that trust, and eventually it'll come out, and then we can maybe make progress from there. But you can't necessarily start with something that's too overwhelming. I'm a trainer. I'm not a psychologist. I don't pretend to be.
But to have that information.
Yes, and it melds into that, but I don't want to start from that point of view, right? So I don't want to come in and try and psychoanalyze somebody. I might be doing that myself. I might be thinking that way.
Sure.
But I'm not projecting that on them per se.
No. But it goes into how you train them.
100%.
Knowing things about them allows
For
you
sure.
to train them appropriately for whatever's going on in their life.
And that's one of the things that I know we talked about, what makes me different from other trainers. And it's a daily thing. A lot of times trainers will have a program that is following. It's about you hitting those goals or going along that pathway. But that's not the way life works. Every day I have somebody in a different position.
Mm-hmm.
The same person tomorrow isn't what they were today.
Right.
I'm dealing with a different emotion. I'm dealing with maybe a different time of day, different things going on at work. So I have to adapt to that to know what I can get with that person that day. And sometimes they might be feeling great, so I can push them beyond where they maybe have ever been before. There's days when they come in and they're happy that they've overcoming that just to get in the door. I know from my own personal experience, one of the other things that doesn't make me a typical trainer, I'm not a fitness fanatic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have always done training for performance for sport.
Mm-hmm.
That was always my motivation. Aesthetics has never been. I've never been vain about how I look. I'm never trained to look better.
And that's what this episode is all about. Right. So let's do that because we're going there. What are some of the lessons that you have learned about movement now that you're not, I know that you're still playing competitive rugby, but not at the same level you were in college.
Yeah.
Okay. But now that you're not training for competition at that level, but like for vitality.
Yep. So it took me many years. Actually, quite honestly, didn't train. I went from being an athlete, so I trained with that motivation. I'm not vain. I wasn't at that age where a lot of us are awake to, okay, this is about my health. This is about my longevity. So I was in that in-between time and honestly got in the worst shape of my life.
Really?
During that period, because I didn't have those two motivations on each end. I was the in-between time. Right. And actually, it took me starting to play rugby again at a different level, and not at a competitive level, but a social level, more happy to have other people to go out and play with level.
Right.
And when I did that, you start to see how much I lost on my body. It was a shadow of my former self.
Yeah.
Even though it physically in the mirror maybe didn't even look that different.
Right.
That's the funny thing about your body is you can lose muscle, gain fat, and be the same person. You look the same, but the reality is you're a shadow, but you were.
Okay. So tell the story you told me about getting back on the rugby field after your break. What was the biggest where you're like, oh my gosh?
Well, yeah, I went out to play what we call touch rugby, and it's just a lot of running around. And so you're making movements in my mind, on my old self. So I go and make a move and I just fall over. And, people are laughing, guys come up, are you okay? And I'd be laughing. I'd be on the floor laughing. It's funny. I thought I could do that. It's just simple things.
It's that brain body connection where your brain is still thinking like an athlete as far as like the movements or the cutting.
And we'll get into this a little bit more maybe, but I think we get into this false sense that we can do things that we can't. And that's a big wake up call. For me, it was, like I said, it was amusing, but it also gave me a great baseline for where I am today, because that was 2014. So we're 11 years later and I'm much better shape than I was then. Right. And I appreciate the things I can do. I mean, I love the fact that I can go out and play with 20 somethings and compete at a pretty decent level.
Is that also the gaining the experience of life and the wisdom? Because we're the same age, we're 53. And so 11 years ago, it's probably beginning that whole midlife shift of I'm not what I was once, or I still think I am. And then, wow, something like that experience, and then having to sort of sit with yourself and deciding, okay, what do I want to be health-wise? What do I want to be in my body? And starting to make those decisions. Because I wanted to do this episode today for all those people who don't know where to start, or could have, would have been an athlete, but then life took over, kids took over, work takes over, family. A lot of us have those periods of a good 10 years where you just, your focus isn't
on you.
Or I would say we don't make our health in that sense a priority, which is all wrong. So if anybody that's listening that's a little younger, try to catch it before you can get back, but there's so many years that you just lose and you don't even know it. We had a big conversation last night about muscle mass. You don't realize you're losing that muscle mass because you might look the same, or it's just not a priority because of other things going on.
Some people think of muscle mass, like people think of like a bodybuilder. They don't realize that muscle, it's not seen. And you can't just by looking at somebody in their clothes have no idea how much muscle they have. You can't judge it by size. You can't judge it by any of these things. So people have a lot of times a lack of understanding of how much muscle they've lost. And this is called sarcopenia, where your body over time will lose muscle mass, and how we can affect that, right? But you're not motivated because you don't see it, right? And especially you look in the mirror every day. It's like watching a clock. If you don't see the changes, we don't have the benefit of, hey, this is you 6 months later, right? So they're silent. And unfortunately, then you come back and try and do things like for me, going on the rugby field, trying to do these things. And I was lucky. I was very fortunate. I consider myself extremely fortunate that I caught it then. Right.
Yeah.
So now my body still had the ability to build muscle. My hormones were still working for me. I could wake them up. I could cause all these wonderful things to happen. So now at 53 years old, I'm in good shape. If I had waited another 10 years, if I had started at 50 and tried to do that, I wouldn't have had that ability. And that's the problem. People aren't waking up to themselves a lot of times till they're 50 years old. Their kids are maybe moving out of the house. They're in a comfortable spot in their job, whatever it is. And they start looking back at themselves. But now it's unfortunately, I want to say too late, because it's never too late, but you've lost a lot of ability to ever get back what you were. That's like people that go on bed rest. We talked last night about having a reserve of lean tissue mass, right? It's not having enough, it's having a reserve. Because typically what happens as we age is we have an event.
Yes.
We have an injury, we have a fall, we have something like that. And now you're on bed rest. Now you're not able to do something. And it doesn't have to be bed rest. It can be just a particular part of your body. But now, as what we lose in that time period, we'll never get back. We'll never get that function back as we age. So it's having that reserve, one, to stop having that event, maybe fall prevention, things like that, but also having a reserve so that when we go through that, we're able to be on the other side of that and still have plenty of muscle mobility, functionality.
Is there a way to measure sarcopenia? Is there a measurable, blood test, blood work?
It's defined as the loss of flesh, basically, the erosion of flesh. When people think of flesh as your skin, well, actually flesh is muscle, right?
Yes.
And so I know it's a funny way to put it, but it's measured really easily by muscle mass. People regularly got their lean tissue mass.
How do you get your lean tissue mass?
Body fat test. Some of the body fat
It's
test.
body fat.
Yeah, well, body fat, if you take the body fat out, what's left?
So what's BMI then?
Now that's BMI is body mass index. That has to do with the weight and inches, how tall you are and how much you weigh, which is a terrible way to define health.
Yes.
I was using this example the other day. I was talking about this running back for the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey. And he's one of these body beautiful people. You see him with his shirt off, he's perfect, right? But he's like my size. Now he outweighs me by probably 30 pounds, even though he's the same size as me, right? And he has all the stacked muscles and all that. Now he's not a huge guy. He's not a big guy. He's just in great shape. And so that muscle mass isn't necessarily defined. He would be considered in the BMI index obese.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you said, Christian McCaffrey, where do you fall on this based on the numbers, how tall you are, how much you weigh, he's an obese individual.
Okay.
I'm borderline obese. That's not really telling you really the health of a person.
No.
And honestly, almost sends people the wrong way.
Yeah. And we'll get into some of the myths about what people think are healthy, but they're not true measures. So I'm glad we're talking about the sarcopenia and the lean body mass, which is your percentage of fat is really what it comes down to.
It's not it's how much, if we take away the fat, what's left. That's the lean tissue.
How does one get that measured? What are the best ways to measure that?
The generally in body right now is probably the easiest. Uses impedance. So you use the handle to step on. So it sends current through your body and then measures how long it takes for that current to get through there by the impedance of that current. Is lean tissue. It goes right through fat, is impeded by lean tissue. So how long it takes. This way to do it without getting into where we get into pools and we have to do a lot more invasive kind of testing. The only way you can actually measure someone's body fat is if they're no longer with us.
So when you say the impedance, that you get the electrodes and then you step on the grounding mat, it measures how long time-wise it takes the current to get through your body. And what you're saying is that fat, it goes right through because it's bulbous. And because muscle is denser, it would take longer for that current to get through. And so do they use then average norms to be able to, okay, if it's this time and they're this age.
Yeah, they would go through your height and weight.
Okay.
So it's measuring your weight. All that.
Your weight, your height. Do they take age into consideration or no?
I think they do, but I kind of am against that. Why would age matter? But I think they do for their calculations just to try and create an average.
No, that makes sense. So you opened Infinite Personal Training in 2007, right?
Yes.
Okay. What led you to launch your own business?
I'd worked for someone else for many years, gone from being a beginning trainer through the general manager. So I was at that point then when I was managing people more than training clients, more than doing what I really love doing.
Yeah.
And I like coaching. I like managing people to some degree, but that's not my passion per se. And also the facility was lowering their standards as far as taking in trainers. When I was hired, there was a high standard of what your background had to be, degrees and things like that. And the owner started changing that. His feeling was, well, I can make anybody a trainer. And so then it was my job to train these people, and they weren't all capable of being good trainers. And then when you're putting your reputation on the line and somebody else is training them,
Yeah.
if I have professional athletes coming to work with me and then I'm pushing them off on somebody else, and at one point that's what happened. I felt like it's time for me. You start running the numbers and you realize that I can do this on my own. I can affect people the way I want to affect them. I don't have to follow a script.
Right.
Right.
It becomes yours.
Natures. Yeah, exactly. That was my motivation.
What makes you unique? We touched upon it a little bit as far as the empathy and being able to listen. But in your training programs, you've got, just like you said, the big gyms and sort of the cookie cutter approach. Now that you're doing your own thing, and you have been for quite some time, what makes it unique?
Perspective, experience, empathy, all these things tied together. I don't think it's, quite honestly, anybody in my area that I know of that has that unique set of skills, right? I work with a lot of physical therapists. That's where a lot of my clientele comes now. And it's because they trust me to work with their clients. Like I said, about putting your name, your reputation out. They're going to send a client to me. Obviously, they have some confidence in me because that's their reputation on the line as well. And they know that I can work with people in a lot of different areas.
So is that part of your uniqueness, is your versatility and being able to work with a varied?
I'd say not just a variety of people that are high risk, or people that a physical therapist wouldn't want to send to just anybody, right?
Well, and I've done that where I will sit down with whoever I'm referring on to, and confident that that person can understand whatever medical background there might be, or, sending someone off to Pilates that had a total knee at that point where it's no longer appropriate for physical therapy in that sense, but they want to continue. It's the physical therapist's integrity and reputation. But what it's really about is just making sure that person gets taken care of properly.
It's positive results. That's what we all want, right? We want positive outcomes for our clients.
That you also understand, like, hey, so not telling you, oh, don't do squats, don't do this, but like realize she still has a really weak glute, or she's having a hard time stepping up.
Well,
and then you being able to create that program, because that's now yours.
I'm also not afraid to go back to that. I'll have times where the client will come to me, and we'll be in collaboration maybe through the client. I'll tell the client, hey, ask so-and-so about this movement. And they'll come back, if they don't want me to do that. And then I'll send them back, well, I need to know why. It's not wrong or right. It's just that I want to understand.
A lot of it's the mechanics or something. So to have someone that I can sit down with and discuss biomechanics with, and actually increase my knowledge from, okay, well, this is how we as personal trainers, or you as Pat Anderson, this is how I look at that. And I can change that function by doing this. And I might say, oh, well, then just go ahead and do it. Yeah. Right. So I think the collaboration is also really important. I always encourage, if someone's going out, if that person has questions, hey, just give me a call. This is a team. This is not, I said, don't do this, don't do this. It's a collaboration so that the client gets the best results, and that they feel comfortable and confident in the people that they're going to, right? Because in the end, it's all sort of a customer service. We're a service industry, right? All right. So you said that you have an affinity for working with people over 50. What draws you to this group? I'm in that group.
The motivation. People that are younger, like you think about why people work. We touched on this already. In your 20s, why are you working at? What is your motivation? A lot of times it goes back to aesthetics. That's great, but it's not life-changing. Right? When I have someone that comes to me because of, a lot of times they're at a place where they've been told by their doctor, or they've had something traumatic happen where they're rehabbing from whatever, right? They're a lot more serious about it. It means a lot more to them. It's a lot more impactful to their everyday life.
Yes, agreed.
And it's very rewarding.
What do people in that age range often underestimate about their own body's potential?
I think it's a combination of overestimating and underestimating. I think a lot of times they overestimate where they are, what they're capable of today, and underestimate how much they can affect that and change that going forward.
Do you go over a certain time commitment where, okay, if you want to be there and I've just assessed where you are today, maybe through a couple of sessions, but this is what it's going to take. Is that part of your planning with them, or is it more of a, let's just see how we go?
Yeah, I don't necessarily want to put something daunting out. I guess it depends. If there's a concrete goal, for instance, I have this wonderful, my favorite client right now, Patty Perkins. She's 82 years old, just sweet as can be, and great perspective on life. And one of our first training sessions with people of that age, one of the things I do is tell them to get on the ground. And she looks at me like, "Oh, well, can you get down on the ground?" You realize that that was going to be a daunting task for her. And the first thing she says to me is, "Well, you're going to have to help me back up." So that's a clue to me. Okay, that's a goal.
Right.
Right. Now
Functional.
that's a concrete, so I might not tell her that day, "Hey, we're going to get you to the point where you can stand up on your own." But that's what I'm thinking as a trainer. That's a goal I've got for myself. And that's an awesome thing.
That is awesome.
And that's a life-changing thing.
Absolutely. It's life-changing in so many ways because
Right.
it's not just the physicality of being able to do it. It changes your mindset, your confidence, your outlook on life.
Emotion. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've gotten to the point now with padding where there's a strategy as far as getting up. There's then building the strength to be able to do that. And now she's on the point where she can get up on her own. It's just.
That's amazing. Oh, yeah. It's the simple things,
Yeah.
though. It's knowing that you've helped that person, if they fall, that they can get up. And what if they're away from their phone or that they can't actually reach out? That's how people really
the
go
first thing
down.
she does is hug me, right? Like,
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah.
That makes it all worth it.
but I have people throughout. I have people in all different places.
Of course.
I had an individual, he was a neurologist and had a terminal illness.
Mm.
I actually went and trained him right before he went into hospice and then through that process. And you think, well, why does somebody that's dying want to do training? And it's like, what's the goals for that? How do you, as a trainer, give them something to work towards? You talk about a challenge for me. At the same
Absolutely.
time, it's what we get from them.
Yes.
I'm not a country music fan, but I listen to singer Jelly Roll talking about his life story and how he gets motivation from his fan letters. And it's like, when you have somebody accomplish these things and fight through things, it just makes you, I don't know, it gives you a special feeling. It's really rewarding.
And it goes both ways because what you gave him isn't necessarily like, oh, I'm going to get better because he has a terminal
Right.
illness. But his mindset through that to be able to
It gave him something
continue
to
to
look forward. And the
exercise.
power of him moving and doing things, it was that emotional power. It gave him something to live for.
And knowing during his time that he still had left here on earth, that he was doing something that he really wanted to do.
When as a neurologist, he understood the power of the mind, right? And
Right.
what it can do for his own perspective.
Being able to take part in the journey towards the end of life and being able to hold space for someone and doing it within your own specialty and what you can give back. I kind of think that that's where a lot of us who go into careers that serve,
Mhm.
that's part of it for us. It's the giving. It is receiving, but it's that connection.
You talk about what was the shift for me as far as being a young athlete going into training. What I started training was athletes. That's what I wanted to train. That was the whole goal. I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach for a professional team. And so that's what motivated me to start in that line of work, was to be a high performance trainer. And then you start to get experiences outside of that. It just changes everything.
It does.
As far as your motivation for what you do.
And that's also like experience of life.
It took it away from about me. Because when I first started, it was,
I want to do
I
this.
want to work with these people. It was
Right.
about me.
My ego.
Right. And being able to say, hey, I train Olympic gold medalists. I've trained world champions. I've trained NFL Hall of Famers. But those aren't the stories I tell.
Bro.
I tell stories
It's
of
the
Patty
everyday
Perkins,
thing.
right? That's the people I
Absolutely.
talk about.
Yeah. And that's awesome, Pat Perkins. I hope you're watching. How do you help people stay motivated when you're dealing with just the fatigue and the joint pain and past injuries? How do you keep them motivated to keep going and move through it?
I think you have to know when to show people progress. When somebody comes in, they're fired up, and I don't need to that day build them up. But at that day, I need to take that opportunity to get what I can out of them, to take them to another level, to take them places they haven't been. It's when they come in and they're not necessarily feeling well, they're depressed about whatever, they're overwhelmed at work. And then we have to kind of slow down, go back and maybe show them versus they made, talk about their successes. It's a different animal, right? That's the art of what I do.
Agreed.
You talk about this with the mind-body connection and all that. So obviously you've seen that, because I don't think of it that way. I don't think of therapy that way. And I don't think of physical therapy that way. I think of physical therapy as just something that's just concrete, dealing with the body. And when you talked about how the emotion and how what goes on, how it affects that, right? Being able to tell different areas and how you can connect that to emotion, it's really eye-opening for me. I took emotion as how much I can motivate somebody that day and things like that. I didn't necessarily think of how it actually physically affects their body.
Oh, you hold emotion in your body. By you helping them move through it, gain the flexibility, gain the strength, it also helps the systems, because they're all connected, to release that stored negative emotion, which is amazing in itself. And so
Well,
you
I
might
guess-
not realize that that's what's happening, but in the background running of the system,
Right.
I just think it's nice to be able to be aware that this is all the things that we're affecting when we're working on people. The same thing as you. I started off I'm an orthopedic physical therapist. I'm working with athletes. And I don't know, as you go, it's like there's so much more reward working with just the everyday person that is recovering from something and then gets to be able to go play with their grandkids or can go be involved with their kids' sports, even though we're older. Participate in life is just the everyday things. Those are the wins.
Right.
You know, those of us that have been athletes, we're a little beat up now. And now I'm like, oh man, would I have done it differently? I have no idea. But I definitely don't have that same want. I miss the competitiveness. I miss that, like ball. It's just about the ball. But I also know that my body paid such a price for it that if I were just able to sprinkle a little fairy dust on myself.
Your body paid a price, but also got a huge benefit.
Sure.
And that's what people ask me today. Hey, you're 53 years old. You go and play tackle rugby. You're crazy. Yeah, maybe. And I'm aware that I'm putting my body at sacrifice, but the benefit I'm getting by going out and training to do that,
Oh, sure.
right, is way higher than the risk I'm putting out there.
No, I just
in
meant
my
at the
eyes.
level of the competitiveness
Sure.
that I was then to
Yeah.
what I would put my body through now, as far as I want to train for my everyday life so that I can keep walking the beach trail and I can, hopefully someday I'll get a grandkid, but like run around with them and then I can take care of my yard and, you know.
And that's why, like, people ask me, this is a classic question for your personal trainer. What do you do when you work out? What do you eat? All these things. And
It
it's
doesn't
not
matter.
about
Yeah,
me.
it
Like,
doesn't
you don't
matter.
want to be me.
Right.
Right. Like I said, you said you don't want to put your body through that because of this and that. I made the conscious decision. I do. I want to challenge my body at that highest level because for me, that's the joy in my life. Like the biggest joy I have in my life comes from being able to be physical. It's the validation. That's what gets me respect.
I
It's
think
all
for-
these things that are
sure.
tied together. Right. So that's important to me. But like I said, when I answer these other people's questions, that's not what's important to them. So it doesn't matter what's important to you. What do you want to be able to do in life? And
Yeah.
one of the big ones is play with your grandchildren.
Well, I don't have any yet.
So,
Not for like 10 years though, kids, if you're listening, because y'all need to figure out your lives, but someday.
but to your perspective, you want to put your body at risk because 10 years from now or whatever, you want to be able to do these things, right?
Yeah, I would like to have the ability to do them, but I'd like to have the ability to go travel. Like, okay, so my mom is 85 and she is on no medication. She's a little 4'10", little Filipino lady, and she was never like athletic, active, but her health isn't such that she's cruising and she's doing great. And I want to be like that. If I am lucky enough to get to the age of 85, I want to be able to do it well.
100%.
Right. And so as we're getting older, when we're in our 50s, and then there's a huge decline in the body once you hit 60, it's actually science-based. I'll have to look up the study. But at 60, we hit this decline. Yeah, there's one at 44, there's one at 60.
Right.
And I don't know if they took measurements beyond, but there's like a noticeable,
Sure.
oh man,
But how much can we affect that?
true.
The average person is fairly sedentary through those years. All these different factors, that's the average person. So that's why things happen. Now, if you're not the average person, are you going to fall up those cliffs? Well, science says that we don't. If you look at people, trained individuals, we see the normal pathway, right? And we see the decline actually starts at 30, where people drop pretty significantly. But we know that people that just train, nothing intense, nothing crazy, half an hour, 3 times a week, things like that, they follow a much flatter path. They don't have those massive fall-offs.
Mhm.
And I don't think we know enough about science as far as our bodies, how our body works with hormones and things like that, to really understand how much we can affect it.
Agreed. But if there's even a possibility, you should go for it.
100%. So that's why I say, I understand what you're saying. And I think it's for science, we need to identify these things to motivate people to understand it. But I don't like to define or say, oh, because you're this age, this is what's happening.
Oh, no.
That makes sense.
And I think that goes back to asking a client what it is that they want and what it is that they're shooting for, because every individual is different. Every individual's life is different and their goals are going to be different. So it's being able to hand tailor, okay, this is what they want to do. We'll get them there.
Yeah.
Right. And maybe in that journey, they'll realize maybe I could do a little more. Oh, well, do you think we could do a little more? And that's that quiet motivation where people start to have a higher, it's not a self-worth, it's just a higher want. And I think that you probably contribute to the process.
Well, you asked earlier what people underestimate. That's what they underestimate, the ceiling.
Yeah.
where they can. Once you get to here, okay, well, what else can we do? What else can we do?
Yeah.
And how far we can go. So I don't typically set a goal that's other than someone like Patty, where it's just obvious, hey, yeah, we need to make it so that you can stand up. That's an easy quantifiable goal. For a lot of people, I don't want to put something daunting out there. Let's be better today than we were yesterday. Let's make you a stronger person. And a lot of times they don't have the experience I have of seeing these different things, seeing people that have been injured, seeing what has happened to people just from one, what seems like somewhat insignificant thing. And that can be such a life-changing, a negative event. If we can prevent that from happening or put the cushions in place so that if something does happen, it's not going to be such a traumatic thing. It's not going to be negatively life-altering.
Right. That you'd be able to recover from it.
Right, exactly.
Because you have some reserve. That makes sense. All right. So can you give me an example of how you might train someone who, just like what I said, who just wants to feel good enough chasing their grandkids around, working in their garden, not heavy lifting for the sake of it? What would you do for them?
I think it goes back to same thing when people think of muscle, they think of this bodybuilder. When people think of weight training, they think of a gym and they think of barbells and they think of all that kind of stuff. But really what we're doing is body training, resistance training. And the number one resistance that we face in life is gravity. So it starts with normal life activities. The first thing I do with everybody, generally speaking, is shoulder mobility. We talk about shoulders and hips, as you well know, are the two areas where we lose mobility. The two action areas of our body, right? That they're things that cause things to happen. So we need to check mobility for those two areas. So in designing a program, that's the first thing we need to figure out is mobility.
Okay.
Right. See what kind of mobility they have, strength through the range of motion.
Yes.
And how their body compensates for that. Your body's like water, finds a path of least resistance. So if I tell somebody to squat and their knees roll in, that's because they're not strong enough. So there's body compensating. Okay. So then therefore I have to, one, point it out to them, show them what we're doing, why we're doing it, why that's going to negatively impact their joints as they work and limit us from becoming as strong as we can be.
Right.
So it starts with that baseline of understanding just basic mobility and functionality and movement.
Yes.
But that doesn't require any weights.
No.
The first things we do, there's no weights other than gravity.
Right. It's your body weight. It's resistance.
Exactly. And so that's the start of that design.
Well, then eventually would that person end up lifting weights or is it more tailored to what they're comfortable with?
We need to challenge your body. So intensity is what causes your body to change, adapt. And how do we define intensity? But typically science says that we have to move a load that's 50% of our 1 rep maximal load or more in order to cause adaptation. So in other words, and one of the ways that we do that, we don't have to use 1 rep max tests. For instance, if you can do something 10 times, we call it 10 rep max. If you can lift a weight 10 times, and that's the only amount you can lift. You can't lift 11 times, you can lift it 10 times, then that's about 70% of your 1 rep maximal load.
Okay.
Okay. If you can lift something 20 times, and 20 is all you can do, then that's about 50% of your maximal load. So we need to do something that is more challenging than we can do 20 times in order to cause adaptation. That makes sense. At some point that we have to add load to that. If I say I'm doing a bicep curl and I'm going against gravity, I can do this 20 times. That's not causing my body to change. That's not creating adaptation. I'm not gaining muscle. I'll learn the motor pathways.
Correct.
Right? So I can learn how to do this. I can do a bench press against air and learn the pathway. But until I add resistance or intensity to it, it's not causing my body to make gains or changes other than mobility.
No.
To your question, do they eventually lift weights? In order to challenge them, we have to find a way of resistance. Weights can come from, like I said, gravity. It can come in bands. There's all different ways that we can cause that to
bands,
happen.
pulleys, weights, water. I mean, there's all kinds of resistance.
We just have to have a way to challenge your body.
Love it.
So that's what I'd say. Like people, when they work out, a lot of times they think that just because they're doing it, they're causing their body benefit. And we significantly increase that benefit with intensity. So that's where I would come in to allow them or find a way to do that in a safe manner.
So what about all those people that come in with the, I guess it's over expectation of the like no pain, no gain, where they come in and they're actually at risk of hurting themselves because they're trying to do too much too soon.
Yeah, well, we mentioned that for the audience. We talked about the difference between when I have a former athlete come in, I'll have an athlete that maybe hasn't worked out competitively for 15 years. Say they're 40 years old and they were a college football player. When I train that person, I have to be way more careful with that person than I do with some 70-year-old woman that has never lifted a weight in their life. Now, in 2W, you would think, what? That's polar opposite of what somebody might think.
Right.
You would think that I have to be very careful with the older women and the former athlete to be fine. The problem is that former athlete has the residual muscle mass to be able to move weight, and they have the mindset to do it in an extremely intense way. They're comfortable with that. They're used to pushing themselves. They've had that experience before. They're used to failure. I think the athlete is trained, has taken their body to a point where they can't do it anymore. And they're okay with that because they know they've challenged themselves. If I take that 70-year-old woman and say, push her to that level, she doesn't have the residual muscle mass to get sore, really. It's not going to cause her that pain. The man, he's probably not going to be able to move the next day if I push him to that level, and is more likely to injure himself, if that makes sense.
Agreed. Let's go into a little bit of the research section that I looked up, and I know that you did too, on training for longevity. So there's a lot of conflicting advice in the fitness world. But when we strip it all back, what does the research actually say about training for longevity? Like, one of the habits that was actually beneficial was actually just walking. And this is for someone who wants to increase daily walking. It's like 5,000 to 7,000 steps. So what is that? Like maybe 3.5 miles or so, was one of the markers that just get your body moving and consistently. So it should be daily. So that was one that I probably looked at that because that's what I do right now. Pat has encouraged me to increase my baseline. But my baseline is I walk probably 45 minutes to an hour a day. Yeah. We'll see how much he motivates me. I know I need to do some weight training. But what are some of the other evidence-based habits for longevity? Like, how often should you do strength training per week?
There's the baseline, right? It's not the ideal. It's the starting point and moving forward. So if you don't walk, go walk, right? That's your starting point. If you don't do any resistance training, then doing it once a week, 20 minutes or whatever, is going to have a great impact on you. It's going to be very beneficial. Sometimes people will ask me, is working out once a week enough? Is it enough? What were you doing before that?
Interesting.
Right?
That's a good perspective.
So, is it ideal? No, but what's ideal? Ideal might be for the most elite athlete out there, but that's not practical. Anything that's beyond what you were doing before, anything that's causing your body to adapt is beneficial. And that's all I'm worried about, is trying to continue that going forward. So that would be my advice for whatever you're already doing, but can you add to it?
No, I like that. Okay. So for people who are trying to refine where they're going to get the best bang for their buck.
So that's different.
Okay. So let's go there. I've been walking, or I've been training a little bit, but where's the best combination of balance of cardio, strength training, walking, Pilates, yoga? There's so much out.
It goes back to what you're not comfortable with. That's the most bang for your buck.
Okay.
What's wonderful about the gym these days is, as science has gotten out there and people have become more educated, the demographics of who's working out has changed. When I used to go to the Gold's Gym in Upland, it was all 20-something-year-old men, maybe 30-something-year-old. And that was the demographic. And they were all pushing. There's a lot of clanking. We're all pushing weight around. And now today, we're still hearing the clanking and pushing the weight around, but it's older people, older women especially, and young women, teens and early 20s, those women. And the difference is because those women understand, they have the research behind them now to know that building lean tissue is most important for them. So they're not afraid to come in and lift the weights. Now, the sad thing is, especially when we were growing up, there was that negative connotation of weight training, and how many women your age don't have lean tissue that they should, and the difference between, and the quality of life that comes with that, right? And we deteriorate at a faster rate. As you said, yes, we're going to get older. So at 60 years old, when we had that cliff, if you're here, then you're there. But if we're up on the top, we're higher up, and then we fall off a little bit. Okay, yes, we're going to have changes, but we're not to the point where now we're not immobile. Now we're not to the point where we're not able to play with our grandkids. We're not at the point where we're not able to do the things that we want to do. We're not able to travel and go out and do excursions because we can't get around, those kind of things. And we don't realize that when we're in our 20s.
Yeah. Oh, no. What's telling me something that's on your radar?
But now these girls are. I know from my own daughters. I have a daughter that's 20 and 17. They go in and do the power lifts. They understand that's the most bang for their buck. That's how they're going to get the look, because they're still caring about aesthetics.
Of course.
It's not that these girls are just, I'm worried about what I look like when I'm 70. They're caring about what they look like now. And they realize to get the aesthetics they're looking for, that pushing weight is how that happens. To get the body that they want.
Do you think that they realize at 20 what the longevity factor is?
No, that's why I'm excited about it, because the longevity factor, the position they're going to be in when they're 60 and 70 is going to be extremely benefited by what they're doing now.
Yeah.
Just like what I talked about with you, as far as the injuries that you suffered, but you still had a great benefit The reason you're in the shape you are today is because of your athletic background.
Yeah. Muscle memory is what I
So,
call it.
yeah.
Definitely. If you had to tell someone, here's the biggest mix of what you should be doing. Like, what's the biggest mix of
Generally speaking, I
cardio,
go back to
weight
what
training?
you're not comfortable with or what you haven't done. So the cardio queens, the people that like doing cardio, you need to resistance train. You need to weight train. That's what you need to do to get the most bang for your buck.
You need to add
What's
in
going to change
resistance
your
training.
body, right?
Sure.
Your body's already done all the cardio. You do more cardio isn't changing anything. You could argue that it's actually a negative effect on your body. For another example might be like, say I have a 50-year-old man who's pretty strong, but he has zero hip mobility. Number one, he's always worked his biceps and his chest because he wanted to look good.
Sure.
You see this all the time with my clients. I have my male middle-aged men doing a lot of exercises you might think would be the traditional things that the young women did, you know, for hip abduction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but if you don't have any hip mobility, I mean, you got to get it.
You take people outside where they're usually comfortable. When people go to the gym and work out on their own, what do? They do the stuff they're comfortable
They do the stuff
doing,
they're comfortable with.
right?
Sure.
And so that doesn't necessarily benefit. They're already probably in pretty decent shape in that respect, right?
So it's about challenging, going
Challenge
outside of
yourself
comfort
outside
zones.
your comfort. Exactly. That's what changes your body. So
Lord.
someone that lifts weights and is strong might need to work a lot more on mobility and cardiovascular fitness. Someone that's already cardiovascular fit is probably going to need to work on weight training and strength. Right?
What would be an overall 2 to 3 shifts that give the biggest payoff for someone who's just starting? What's going to make the biggest difference in their overall vitality? What would be the 3 biggest shifts in their current lifestyle or exercise, non-exercise lifestyle, I should say, for someone who's really just starting?
Strength, mobility, and diet.
There you go.
Those changes happen incrementally. We don't have to all of a sudden go from having a bad diet to have a great diet. I generally tell people it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. It's not a battle, it's a war kind of thing. People get defeated very easily.
Yeah.
When it comes to fitness or nutrition. I hear people all the time, they'll have a bad day or have one particular break in their diet. Oh, I had pizza, so screw it, I ate whatever.
Yeah.
Or I already had a dessert, so I had 3. And so for me, in my own, I always say, well, what would I have done and what I do now and celebrate that? For instance, if I would I have formerly had 4 pieces of bread, now I have 1 piece of bread. That's a lot of times people go, oh, I still have the bread.
Right.
Right. And then they'll defeat themselves.
It's like
and then
one or the other. The spectrum of where they're at, it's not good enough. But that's what I'm talking about. The mental and emotional toll that you have to see where a person comes from. And that nurturing yourself is more about, okay, so I had dessert, but it's not because you're rewarding yourself. It's because you felt like having dessert. And in that instance, you're not going to have 3 desserts because you had a taste and that's fine. But the person who is looking at that from a reward, I earned that or I deserve that. And I say, so you didn't deserve it any of the other times? It's changing that mindset of how the relationship with food is what I think it is. It's shifting the mindset so that the reward is being more mobile, being stronger so that I can do the things that I love.
Pride in yourself.
Very much so. How did your background in rugby shape your current view on fitness, performance, and recovery?
It's an interesting question. Rugby's very community as far as that's concerned. Rugby's a very unique sport in that your own safety is predicated on your teammates. When a rugby player gets tackled, they go to the ground and their teammates come and basically protect them when they release the ball. So you maintain possession. While that's going on, the other team's trying to battle to basically gain or dominant position over top of you. So you have 2 factions fighting over top of you. And so your team is actually protecting you because you're in a helpless on the ground position. And it's a pretty powerful thing.
I didn't realize that that's what
to have your teammates. Well, once you go on the field with somebody, you have that bond. I call all my former teammates, I call brother. You'll see that in my Facebook posts or anything. Every one of them, I call them my brother because that's community. And it goes to when people get injured, you still have that community around you because we've all been through it. My first year in Scottsdale, I shattered my jaw playing rugby, and it was middle of the season, toward the end of the season. So I was done for the rest of the season. And I had 2 reconstructions, still have numbness in my face. I went on going on tour, going to Missoula, Montana with that same group, even though I was injured, so I didn't play. And the community I had and how they kept me together during that time. It could have been an extremely depressing time. When athletes get injured, it's very depressing.
Been there.
Yeah. So having that community pick you up, bring you back in. One of the things about the injury, when you shatter your face, I was very lucky. The maxillofacial surgeon to put me back together, Dr. Guyette, was a former Kentucky basketball player. Guy was massive, like 6'9", played on a national championship team in Kentucky. Wow. He had an athlete background. So one of the first things he said to me was, I know what you're thinking. Yes, you'll be able to play again. And I get teary. I think about it because he knew what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And he said, the hardest thing for you isn't going to be physical. Like your jaw's going to be fine. It's going to be stronger than it ever was. But you being able to put your face back in there, I didn't making a tackle. I took a knee in the face. So I was making a tackle, and the mindset to go back and do that.
Right.
Right. And I remember the person I tackled the first time I came back. He was a player at ASU, and we were on a scrimmage, Josh Birch. And the crazy thing is, after I tackled him, Josh knew I was going through, and he like patted me on the back. It was like, good tackle. He knew what I was going through. Mm-hmm. Right. And having that community around, Josh is still a friend of mine today, and Josh had his own significant mental health issues a few years ago. And I reached out to him several times to see how he was doing. So how it affects me, it's that empathy of now creating that bond with my clients.
Yeah.
And I told you that everybody's an athlete, and that's part of what I mean by an athlete, right? That we have that bond together. That
community.
Right. So I've been there. I've been through this. It may not be that same specific injury, but I understand what you're going through emotionally, right?
Yeah. No,
right.
we understand that feeling.
Broken.
Oh, I
right.
know.
So,
yeah. Well, and then it's broken, but not being a part of that community in that way because you're not on the field doesn't mean they're still not supporting you and you're not part of the team, but you don't feel part of the team because you're unable to go and get on the field.
So I think that same thing happens in life when we go through different things. And so that empathy and trying to build people back up, and
yeah,
the great advantage is any injury I've had and still have today really increases my knowledge about those areas. I'm always being worked on by
it's all knowledge
people.
And wisdom as we get older. All right. So you're playing more socially, but it's still fairly competitive. So, it's not like you miss rugby.
It's not a sport that you can play not competitive.
I know, because you get hurt, right?
Right.
All right.
You can't tackle half speed.
That's true. So on this podcast, we talk a lot, obviously, about, and we have already, about the emotional body and how the body holds unprocessed emotion, right? We had a conversation about that last night. Have you ever seen clients go through the emotional shifts when they start moving again?
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. And this is, again, something when I was younger and I just saw the science side of it. I didn't factor in the emotion. I mean, I knew obviously emotion can affect performance, but I was from an athletic background, right? Not like an everyday life background. And I had a powerful experience one time. I had this woman who was on leg press, very strong, super type A, just highly motivated person. Wasn't somebody I had to push. It was somebody, it was just facilitate really. And I had her on the leg press, and the leg press can be like squatting. It's an emotional thing because you have weight pushing on you, right? And so I was pushing her to a level of her somewhat maximal load, and she just mentally broke down, just started crying. Now, this is someone that was very strong, tech CEO. That was eye-opening for me because it was kind of like, what the heck's going on? And then it was like, it made me realize how powerful it can be. I guess I had that experience as an athlete. I just didn't necessarily associate it. And it's the physical, the connection, right? The mind, the body, the physical. And that physical experience brought out that emotion.
It's a release.
And it's not like I had to say anything to her other than it's okay. And when you're ready, we'll keep going. It's an eye-opening experience. For me, that was the first shift for me to realizing the emotion behind it. And then you have to, as a trainer, then understand how that can work positively and negatively.
And like you said, know when to push and know when to pull back and hold space. And it's this dance, right? I think that probably what makes you a very unique and a very good trainer, though, because it's not just the knowledge base of the science of, okay, so this is what we do. We do resistance training or max this. It's how you then take that knowledge and use your personality and your own wisdom of Pat Anderson, not a personal trainer.
I always pre-plan like workouts, what I'm planning to do that day. But say, for instance, I'm doing a one-legged deadlift, which it takes a lot of balance. There's a lot going on. And if somebody's not mentally there that day, right, then that's not an exercise that because they're just going to get frustrated
or hurt
and defeated, right? So it's not going to be a positive experience. So maybe I might do something that's just a little less and mindful and more just physical, right? So allow them to maybe get that confidence, get that release.
Well, and let me ask you that. How do you help someone that's disconnected, whether it's on a day or in general, right? Disconnected from their body, maybe due to burnout, injury, aging. How do you rebuild that relationship to their body?
Are you speaking like on a one-day thing or like a total thing?
Total, like over time.
Well, that's it. That takes time. That takes small victories. That takes finding that athlete in them, making them aware of that athlete in them, understanding what they're able to accomplish. I can't have them be defeated. So we have to set up a series of successes to build them up, showing them their functionality. Sure, maybe show them their lack of functionality at first to realize how, because sometimes that can bring them back in. If you show them, hey, look at the shoulder and look at how you cannot move it, and then it maybe helps them to refocus on themselves. Now let's bring it
Getting back in your
Right,
body.
yeah. So
It's speaking truth. Like, here's the truth
Right,
about your shoulder.
right.
And when you hold that mirror up, like, this is what your shoulder can and cannot do, the realization of that, sometimes it can be just an instant, but more often than not, I think that you're right. It takes time of just really re-going over that, of bringing people's attention back to their
your
body.
strategy is going to be different for everybody. It's the way all our relationships are in everyday life, right? You don't treat anybody exactly the same,
Right.
right? I mean, that's everything is you're going to be fair or whatever, but you don't treat people the same.
Well, but you're saying it's setting up a program so that those people over time, each time they come in, there's victories. There's many victories, and that's how you build them up.
Day to day, quite honestly. So then on day one, if they're coming in maybe broken, not connected to their body, and then maybe it's all about just kind of starting to reconnect them back.
Mhm.
Show them basic things, basic movements. 2 weeks down the line, that might be a very different thing. What I do with them or even how I adjust that day is very nuanced.
So it's just very reading your clients on day to day. That's good. I like that. The flexibility. Flexibility is important, like we talked about, of the mind also, not just of the body. I'm going to do a couple of quick fire. I didn't prep you for these. Okay. So
Right.
one movement every person over 50 should be doing.
Squats,
Most underrated exercise.
split squats.
Can you tell me what a split squat is?
Seriously.
Yeah.
If you think about kneeling down on one knee and standing back up, that's a split squat.
Thank you.
There's all things on the continuum. Like a basic split squat is just going down, coming back up. We can do push back lunges, walking lunges, step up.
Those are all
All
forms.
those things on the continuum of it. Right?
Okay. Now I can picture it though. I'm visual. I had to picture it. Okay.
I did it.
One recovery practice you swear by.
Foam rollers, my favorite piece of equipment, so to speak. What I tell people, everybody over 50, 50% of your exercise, workout, whatever you want to call it, should be therapeutic. So that can be defined as stretching, rolling, meditating, all these different things fall into therapeutic.
What's your favorite?
It depends on the day.
Personally, yours.
Depends on the day. It depends
Yeah.
what I need. The advantage I have in the job I have is that I'm able to do all these therapies. I have them right there with me.
That's true.
I roll half a dozen times a day. It's not for maybe very long. Maybe I'm waiting for a client to get there. So I'll just go grab the roller. And
Do a foam roll.
my favorite device is a ball. Ideal, I'd say, is a lacrosse ball because it's a hard-ish rubber ball, but you can use a tennis ball, although it's not going to be hard enough as you progress. A baseball, anything like that. Put it into a stocking, throw it over your shoulder, and use that to massage your back. But anywhere, as you all know, around your rotator cuff, these muscles that stabilize your shoulder will tend to get immobility starting there because of knots and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So being able to release physically and also just how it feels,
Right.
giving yourself a massage is a pretty nice thing. But like I said, therapy is huge.
What is common myth about fitness and aging you would love to debunk?
Muscle is your friend. A lot of people, I hate to generalize, but especially women of our generation, just have this negative concept of what muscle is. They don't realize that muscle is everything. It's what makes you mobile. It makes you functional. And that's why with sarcopenia, as people age and they lose that ability, it's devastating to everything in life. Every time we work out, we want to maximize the muscle that we build. I hear a lot of people say, especially our age, I want to maintain. There's no such thing as maintaining.
Because you're constantly declining.
Yes.
We're dying every day.
Well, we're living every day. Every
Yeah.
day we're regenerating. Our body is nothing the same 180 days later. Our cells are always regenerating. So we're constantly having that opportunity. It's what we do that defines that. Your goal, anytime you do resistance training, should be to build as much muscle mass as you can. That should be your goal by whatever terms that is. And that means challenging your body. That would be the myth. We don't want to build muscle. We absolutely need to build muscle. But that's your goal.
Muscle. Favorite way to stay consistent when motivation is low?
Honestly, just walk in the door.
It's true. Get your foot in the door. Just go.
I think anybody that's worked out at all has had this happen where you just don't want to go. Now, there's maybe times where, yes, you probably shouldn't. But generally speaking, Once you walk in the door and you start moving, the endorphins kick in, and all of a sudden you find yourself doing a lot more than you thought you could.
Or wanted to that day, you know?
And sometimes, and I see this with my clients and myself, sometimes that's when you have the best workouts, the days that you didn't necessarily want to be there. And then you tap into whatever, and maybe it's because something was bothering you at work, something was bothering you at home, and then you tap into that, and that becomes your energy. You use that negative energy and make it a positive and get that out.
Yeah.
And so we talked about the mind body. Not only are you getting the benefit of your body getting the workout, but now you're walking out there feeling much better. When you walked in feeling like crap, didn't want to work out at all, and now you're walking out, you've had not only the benefit for your body, but you're mentally feeling much better.
Yes. Just get your foot in the door, guys.
Walk in the door, just show up.
So, yeah, show up. Just if someone listening feels like they've let themselves go or thinks it's too late, what would you say to them?
It's cliche, obviously. It's never too late, but you just don't know what you're capable of.
Give yourself some credit because you don't know if you don't try. What does training for the life you're living mean to you right now in this chapter of your own life?
I want to be physically active as an athlete. That's the conduit for what I do, my joy. I coach women's rugby. I want to be able to provide examples for them. I don't want to just have to have them visualized by what I say. I also want to be able to
get the whiteboard out.
Do you have the whiteboard and magnets and everything? But being able to, when I get frustrated with what they're doing, then drop the clipboard and go out and actually show them and hear the oohs and ahs when I do it. That's really rewarding for me. I don't have to do it at the level I did, but it's like
no, there's a joy in being able to show someone a stance or, this is how you set up. And I do that too when I'm showing people exercises. They're like, you can do that. I can do like one. I probably can't do 20 or 50 of whatever I'm showing you, but I can still get into that position. And yeah, it does make you feel good that we can still perform. Well, that's great.
Well, for everybody else, that's what,
it's just for you. I want people to know you.
All right.
There's performance exercise, and then there's exercise as a lifestyle. What would you say to people who really need to hear that exercise is actually a lifestyle? It's not necessarily performance-based as we transition into our midlife, that exercise is a lifestyle, just like diet is a lifestyle.
The body is the only one we got. And so you have to take care of it. If you expect it to be the vehicle that you take into a enjoyable later life, you have to maintain that vehicle. You have to take care of it. And it's not a once in a while kind of thing. It's a daily maintain, care for, feed.
Yeah. It's that commitment and that relationship with yourself. I think that's a good way to end. So that was Pat Anderson. And I hope this conversation sparked something for you. Whether you've been avoiding movement, caught in old beliefs about what aging should look like, or just unsure about where to start. Let this be your reminder. It's not about going backwards. It's about aligning with where you are now and moving forward from there. You don't need to train like an athlete to feel strong, but you do deserve to feel good within your body again. And in that sense, we are all athletes, as Pat says. If this resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe for more episodes. You can find Pat and his work at infinitepersonaltraining.com, and all the links are in the show notes. Until next time, our shift has ended for today, but yours is just beginning.